wasn't so long ago. We were here, 7, 8 weeks ago. So we're well used to all the restrictions and all the things that are sort of enforced on us. But like I said previously, we're very lucky to be able to do what we're doing and do our jobs, and to have sort of a few restrictions isn't the end of the world. So we're making do. The camp's in good spirits. We've had a good opening couple of days, and we're very much looking forward to next week now.
I guess it hasn't kind of stunk in just yet that this is you guys now in the bubble for quite a significant period of time. Is there any break in the middle, in the down week? Do you get to go home, or are you stuck there the whole time?
Yeah, we're probably, like, the first 2 games are obviously a strict bubble. You have to, any type of permission to leave camp has to go through the management, and then I suppose after the French game we'll be allowed to go home for a few days, and then we'll retest and then come back into the bubble again for a couple of weeks, and then each follow week we'll probably get home for a couple of days. So it's not like it's 8 weeks in a row. We know that there's a little break from the bubble in a couple of weeks. So for us, it's just about committing to everything that's asked of us for 2 weeks, and if we can get a couple of good results to start off, then it'll be worthwhile.
Was there any nervousness? Has it come up at all about, like, people getting into it? Most people who are in jobs are being told, stay home if you possibly can. You guys obviously can't stay home. You've got to go and play matches, and you've got to train to get ready for it. We ask quite a lot of our sports people to continue to do their jobs to entertain us in the midst of this pandemic. What's that like? There must be a bit of a tension there.
Yeah, there is, but like I saw the other side of it when we the first lockdown, and I suppose the Premiership football came back, and I was mad keen to watch it, and the difference that made to my enjoyment, and I've got obviously family, friends talking to me about the Six Nations coming up, worried about if it wasn't going to go ahead, because they were looking forward to it as much as we were. So I know that you're saying, you're asking a lot, like, we get to do what we love. We're very lucky to do it. So we're not looking at it at all as a burden. I know it's going to be tougher for some guys with young families. Bundy Aki just had a baby boy last week. Cian Healy just had a baby boy last week. So especially tough on them and their partners to not have them there, especially in the early days. Their days you don't get back. But, what that shows me is how much it means for those 2 guys to play for their country, that they're giving up probably the most special days of their lives with their family to be here and represent Ireland. So, we can get criticised at times, but I suppose that says everything for me.
Yeah, and I think the other aspect of this is mental health, and we've seen a couple of players from other countries drop out of the Six Nations, and just citing those kind of personal reasons. And it is something that we all need to be cognizant of. I've heard you speak before about taking mental health seriously in the second half of your career, where you kind of started to do much more mindfulness and put it in as part of your day-to-day kind of just progression through the day to prepare for matches. Is this something that you've leaned on a lot recently, particularly given what's going on?
Yeah, I think it's even more important now. I think the uncertainty is the thing that gets to a lot of people, and I'd be the same. Worrying about what's in the future, what's around the corner. Will we ever have crowds back? I suppose at my age, like you don't know when your last season's going to be. You don't know when your last game is going to be, and the thought of not getting a chance to play in front of the support again, that plays, strongly on your mind. And, I saw the way Rob Kearney and Fergus McFadden finished, and you're hoping that things will go back to normal. Like, it's a very selfish way of looking at it. But, it's the uncertainty of not knowing what's ahead, that you need to sort of look after your mental health. Because if you get dragged into the future too much, that's when you get into trouble. That's where I get into trouble, at least.
I think everybody is exactly the same at the moment. That's like, everybody has this kind of uncertainty that you're just trying to bat away as long as you can, and then you deal with it for a little while, and it becomes overwhelming. A lot of people are experiencing that sense of overwhelming. Sometimes it's dread, and sometimes it's fear, and sometimes it's just like, it feels like you're always on. What do you do? How do you deal with that? What is the mindfulness that you actually practice to help that?
Yeah, we're the same, and it's like, we're human beings as well. It's a big challenge for us as well. And I suppose the only thing that you can try and do for us anyway, like obviously all the mindfulness and meditation type things to try and keep you in the moment really. And the days that I'm in good form, the days that I don't get, dragged into this what if scenario is the days that, I'm doing that. I'm trying to live in the moment and concentrate on the training session in front of me or the meeting in front of me, and letting everything else look after itself. But like I said, it's easier said than done at times. It's a very uncertain time for everyone in the world, and like I said, we're just incredibly lucky to have some bit of normality, like being in camp together, training towards one goal, which is the Six Nations, is as normal as things have got for us. So it's a nice change.
The Dublin footballers used to do sessions, and the players would lead them. It only came out in Bernard Brogan's book last year. A few of the players, in particular, Michael Darragh-Macaulay was one, and Kevin McManaman is actually a qualified sports performance psychologist. It was player-led. Did Joe Schmidt bring this into the Ireland team? Is that where you would have been introduced to it?
Yeah, that's the first I've heard of it. Again, I wouldn't have been the most mindful person, I should say. I struggled with it, and when Joe was preaching about it at the start, I kind of, we used to go into the mindfulness sessions, and I used to lie there, and I used to just plan my day, or I'd, be going through what we were going to do in training and what I was going to do in training, and I didn't get it, and it took it probably bad year, stressful year for me to kind of buy into it, and I bought into it and probably had the year of my career off the back of it, and then I've tried to keep it up since. So something that definitely helps, never mind with your performance, but with your mental well-being as well. So it's definitely something that is pushed on us, is encouraged in the environment. It's encouraged with, in Leinster as well, and it's encouraged with, the Players Association, that we're strongly encouraged to keep involved and look after ourselves in that way.
Yeah, and look, it's good training for the rest of your life as well, to be able to deal with whatever's coming, right?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be amazing at it myself. At times I'm very good. I'm very diligent with it, and then other times, you can let it slip, and you do notice the difference in it. But yeah, it's a good tool for life after rugby. For even teaching your kids. I know even like my young fellow at school, he was doing it, much younger than we were. So, hopefully he'll see the benefits, and I'll encourage him to do it when he's a little bit older and the world gets a little bit more stressful.
How have you found the homeschooling?
I've been kind of like training extra, trying to get out of the house as much as possible. My poor wife, she's a teacher by profession. She gave up when we went to Paris a few years ago. She gave up, and she took a long leave of absence, and she was planning to go back. She never did go back. So she's getting a taste of it again. But I think it's different when you're doing your own. Like, we've got a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, which are very well behaved, and they do their school and their homeschooling. But we have a 2-year-old as well that is just running amok while the other two are trying to do school. So it's a challenge for her. I tried to help out one morning, didn't go that well. So I tend to just get out of the house on my days off, get some coffee for Laura to help her with the chores of it, and
that's a sacrifice.
Pick up the pieces after. Yeah, that's as much for me as it is for her. But I try and get the 2-year-old out, get out for a walk with her, and get out, have a coffee with her, and give Laura a break. But yeah, Laura's taking responsibility for it, and it's tough work, I think.
It is unbelievably tough. I think a lot of parents are finally realising what it's actually like. Imagine if you had 30 of those kids running around the place every day at 4 and 5 and 6. But
I think what's worse though is I don't think your kids listen to their parents. Whereas if a teacher tells them to do something, they just literally do whatever they're told. Whereas at home, it's just in one ear, out the other. So it's probably extra challenging.
In our house, that goes blah 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 is what they say. That's the answer to anything that we ask them to do. So over the summer, when you had this downtime, this kind of enforced sabbatical, Were you thinking at that stage that actually this is not the worst thing for my career in the long run? That, like, you know, many of us would have thought that you would have benefited from a sabbatical at various stages, particularly given the demands of the number 10 role and just how physical it is and how open you are so often to tackles, etc. That actually your body needs a rest, and who knows what the benefits of that are at the far end.
Yeah, like, obviously that was the positive slant on it. You know, that was the bit you had to try and find the positives in that situation, and for me that was that. It was like a little mini sabbatical, you know, that I wouldn't have got a break like that otherwise, and it came at a time in my career obviously that I tried to use wisely, and yeah, like, if anything, it gave me a hunger again to how much I missed it, and how much, I suppose, playing the game and doing what I do, how much I love it. I suppose it gave me that perspective, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say, that it just showed me that we're very lucky to do what we do, and I missed it, and it just showed me that I still want to keep going. So if nothing else, you know, that I maybe overtrained at times during this, because like I said, I was training hard just as much for mental well-being and to get out of the house as much as, you know, probably doing a little bit more than we were asked. But look, I ended up enjoying the time with family and training hard, and you figure out your own little routine through that time. Hopefully we don't have to do it again for too long, but you know, you make do with the cards you're dealt, really. That
whole notion of the sabbatical, Richie McCaw famously took one, and it helped him to get to the end of his career, which resulted in a World Cup win. Dan Carter took one as well, and I know you did a video interview with Dan Carter recently, and we'll talk a little bit about some of that. But did you ever think about, actually, if life had been normal, was it something that you had thought about or considered asking for at any point?
No, not really. No, it hadn't crossed my mind. You know, I know a lot of guys in New Zealand. You see now with Bowden Barrett, they've sort of had a 6-month stint in Japan, and he's got 2 of them written into his long-term contract. And I suppose that's a little bit different, isn't it? It's not a sabbatical as such. So I never considered that. I suppose break from the game. No, like, I think obviously, look, I pick up the odd niggle here and there. I suppose it probably seems more than it actually is, because every time I pick up a niggle, it's reported on, and it's talked about a lot. But I think for the guys that, I suppose, Richie McCaw, he spoke about, like, he needed a break. He needed his body just to have 6 months to fix all the injuries he's had. And I'm lucky that we probably get looked after so well here that I haven't had that need to take 6 months and sort of refresh the body. And the little sabbatical that we have over lockdown, I did enjoy it, and it did refresh me mentally as much as anything. How
do you tell if you're playing well? How do you tell if you're in form? What are the kind of key things that you go, yeah, did that, tick that box, hey, I feel good, this is going well?
I don't know, like, it's a good question. I think you just know by how you're, like, training and how you feel on the pitch. Like, that is, you know, sometimes when you're in good form, the game feels easy, like you feel like you're seeing space, and I think that comes with when you get a couple of games under your belt in a row, and you're injury free and you're fit, you're match fit. I think you know, that's for me when I feel like I'm getting into good form. When, like, you're off and you're at like, you know, prolonged injury or whatever, things just aren't as they're not as easy, not as natural. You know, you're searching for things as opposed to just seeing it in a split second. So I think that's when, I suppose, I'm at my best, and I think that comes with you know, getting good training time, making sure the body's healthy, making sure the mind is in a good place, and you know, hopefully we can do that next week, really.
And are you at the stage of your career now where you can kind of cheat that a little bit too, because you've got so much experience to lie back on, that, like, if you don't feel it in one training session, it's not actually, that doesn't mean that for the whole week it's going to take you a couple of games to get back into that sense of, okay, I can find the space here, I can see this, I can think my way out of this?
Again, it's not something like I suppose for me, like, training time is just as important as playing time. You know, so for me, over the last, I suppose, since the November internationals, I obviously played the last game, played okay, played fine, and then came back to Leinster, and I was due to play the first game in Europe, and I kind of I pulled out of that, and then I was basically just rested for the next one. And I took a bit of time to get myself fully sorted. It only took a week or two, and then I trained really hard, played Ulster, played 80 minutes, felt sort of better as the game went on. Like, that's what I'm talking about, sort of at the start. I was a little bit rusty, and then against Munster then I felt good, and obviously just frustrated to pick up a little niggles. So I'm hoping that those 2 games will stand to me if selected next week.
That playing 80 minutes, it's not something that happens all the time anymore for you as a player. Do you make an accommodation with that? Are you always pissed off coming off early? Like, do they tell you in advance, look, you're going to play for 60 minutes? How does that work?
It depends on the situation, as as I found out the hard way after the French game. No, I think, yeah, I suppose specialist positions, very rarely, obviously, if you're winning the game, obviously subs will come on. If you're losing the game, subs will come on. So you're in a specialist position where there's always another out half on the bench. So it's likely you're not going to play 80. Obviously, there's nothing better than playing 80 and being on the pitch at the end of the game, having won the game. It's a different feeling when you come off and you're sat on the bench and you win. It's a little bit different. So yeah, I would like to play 80 more, but like, again, I have to take responsibility as well. There's been games where you pick up niggles, or games where things aren't going that well, that you need to come off. So it's a mixture of everything, really. Are
you getting better at dealing with that? This seems like a loaded question. It's not, but are you better at dealing with this now than you would have been, say, when you were 28, 29?
Or 6 months ago.
Well,
or not even 6 months ago, 3 months ago. No, look, I think a lot was made after the French game, so I know it is a leading question, Ger. A lot was made after the French game, and rightly so. It was a bad reaction, and something I wouldn't have done, obviously, if I had that split second back. But I suppose like I said, it's a split second thing. I looked up at the big screen to see the score and the time on the clock, and I was angry with how we played in the second half, angry with some of the decisions, etc. And I suppose it was, like I said, it was a split second thing. Normally you wouldn't expect the camera to be on you at that stage. And if I'd known the craziness that was going to come after it, I obviously wouldn't have done it. But look, you live and learn. And yeah, you'd think at my age you'd have more experience to do that, but when it means a lot to you, and you care about the team, and you care about like winning, and it can get on top of you. So I apologise obviously at the time, was made of that as well. But like I said, it's not always you learn your lessons the hard way sometimes.
Do you think more gets made out of stuff now because you are the captain?
Yeah, and rightly so. That's the responsibility that goes with it, and that's why, I suppose I'm defending myself a little bit by saying it was a split second thing. It wasn't like it carried on into the dressing room or into the stands or anything like that. It was very much a sort of a disappointment in myself as much as anything. So it wasn't aimed at anyone or anything in particular. It was a mixture of things, and like I said, it was a split second. But I think that if we'd known the stuff that was going to happen after it, and but like as captain, you need to be better than that, and you can't do that. And yeah, it was lesson learned. You
can't really cheat the experience of captaincy that much. Like you've got obviously endless experience, one of the most experienced players in world rugby at this stage. But it's a different. I presume it's a different preparation for you now. Like it's there's much more of various things to do rather than just worrying about your own game. Are you better this time than you would have been even 12 months ago? Have there been things along the way that you've learned for that?
Yeah, I think in terms of captaincy, I'll hopefully be better for the years' experience I've had. I suppose people would judge me because I'm a bit more experienced and I should have known better in that moment. But I'm a young captain as well. I've only done it for 2 or 3 years, and my role before that was very much different in the environment. Like I could be the I suppose, the bad guy and let the captain pick up the pieces. Whereas now you can't have those moments. You can't have the moments that sometimes you kind of, not plan, but, when you see that guys aren't on it, or you're not concentrating, or the effort's not there on the week of a certain game, and you kind of have a go at someone to try and G everyone else up. You can't do that anymore. You've got a responsibility, and at times it's a challenge. But like I said, hopefully I'll be better for it this campaign.
The reason I was asking about the 80 minutes is because we had Ronan O'Gara on during the week, and obviously he always gets asked, because he's a number 10, about the situation at 10 and the depth that we have and the competition that there is for the 10 spot. And he had the idea, I want to play the clip because I don't want to paraphrase him too much. He was talking about your role and how it might evolve and perhaps lengthen your career. Just have a listen to it so I don't butcher this properly. Have a listen.
I think without Joey, there's a huge onus on Johnny, and a huge responsibility on Johnny to start games and do everything nearly. But the fact that if Joey was there, Johnny can easily play the backup role and play and have as much impact in 30 minutes than he could have in the 50 or 60 minutes. Yeah. So it's a very, very different dynamic, and it's a one that could be very interesting. And I think it also tactically changes the situation as well, but also the fact that if Joey finds his strides, then there's a capacity to bring in, a Ross Byrne or a Harry Byrne, or another player to get up to speed with Johnny in the background as well. But it's so talking about it, I suppose, doesn't. When you're that player and you've that burning desire to be such a competitor and play for your country, and you know that it won't last forever, Johnny isn't going to walk away. He's not going to kind of underestimate how much he brings to it, and how much rightly so he feels that not playing for Ireland would be such a big void for him.
Yeah, and he said the same thing about not playing for Ireland was such a big thing for him as well. Is there any part of you that is kind of thinking, I can change my role here at some point down the line?
Sorry, I thought you were talking after Rog.
Yeah, sorry.
It's not up to me, they're not decisions that I make as a player, they're decisions that the coaches make, and thankfully Rog is not coach, because I wouldn't be playing if he was.
He did say he would pick you. We didn't. That was a long conversation. It was there's no doubt at the moment that that he would definitely pick you.
Yeah, look, obviously that's Rog's opinion. What do you want me to say to that in terms of?
Well, I guess I'm wondering.
I need to change my role. It's not something that I ever think about. It's not something that I want to start thinking about. I just try and turn up in the best shape I can, in the best mental state I can, and try and perform in training. And if that gets me picked, well, then I want to start and play for Ireland. And that's basically my motivation. I don't. If the coach says, look, in this game we think you're better off coming off the bench, well, then I literally throw myself into it that way. It's not. But like I said, it's not something that I'm going to decide or have an influence on.
No, I wouldn't expect you to say anything other than I absolutely want to start, because that's the motivation, that's the cutthroat nature of professional sport, where as soon as you come off that, then that's a very slippery slope. I suppose he's talking about his end for Ireland was very quick, and there's probably another way of managing careers so that we get the very most to the very last moment out of it. And it sounds like we're a good bit away from that yet, Johnny.
I don't know. I don't know how far away we are from it in terms of, it's not up to me when I end either. It's very much season by season, it's game by game, and like you mentioned there, the cutthroat nature of professional sport is, you don't know when the end is going to be. And I want to make the most of whenever that might be. If it's this season, if it's next season, I don't know. But all I know is that I'm motivated to try and play well for Ireland at the moment, and if I perform well in training, hopefully I'll get picked, and then it'll be all focus on that really.
After the last World Cup, the staging post, or the halfway staging post, is always a Lions tour, and it was always in your head. I heard you talk about that before. About everybody who plays professional rugby wants to play and be involved in the Lions. And then, so the Lions is pretty soon. But then after that, you're back into a World Cup cycle. Have you allowed yourself to even think about perhaps still being around for a World Cup?
No, like again, I suppose I made a comment with the media a month ago or 2 months ago and said, in my head, I still think I can get there. Yeah, like it was a little bit tongue in cheek. Like I still think at the moment, I'm loving the game. I'm loving training. I'm loving playing with my teammates. So I don't see a need to finish now, but things can change very quickly. You know what I mean? So I'm literally taking it season by season, and at the moment, all my focus is on literally Wales at the moment. I'm getting 100% fit and firing into next week, and everything else, I suppose, looks after itself. Nothing else looks after itself if you're not holding your end of the bargain up and performing and playing well. So that's where all my focus is at the moment. Well,
the mindfulness obviously kicks back in there, and it makes a lot of sense, particularly when you reach this stage where you absolutely need to enjoy every single game. And it sounds like you're doing that at the moment. I've got 3 final quick texts that are coming in here. Who's the king of the snooker table at Carton House? I'd say the forwards don't have the fine motor skills to compete, says Noel.
Who's good? There's a few forwards that are decent. We don't have a snooker table, we've got a pool table, but some of the forwards are all right. James Ryan's all right. Had a couple of good games against him, but we just have to be careful. You're not in the same space as someone for more than 15 minutes, so the games have to be quick.
All right, okay, of course. Chris wants to know, in terms of comparing himself to his 25-year-old self, what parts of his game are better and what parts of his game are worse?
It's a good question. I don't know. Like I feel like back then, obviously, I was playing more consistently, as in more games. I suppose I went through a period of my career where I got very few niggles and injuries, and then over the last couple of years, I've had a few, I suppose. But like I suppose some parts of my game now are so much better than they were back then. And I look back at some of the games, even through lockdown, when we were looking at the old games on TV, and I think I'm more in the game for longer at the moment. I think back then I used to have brilliant moments, but maybe would drift in and out of the game or be watching the game at times, as opposed to now where I feel I'm in it. So I think with things that you've learned over the years, like I'd hope that I've kept improving. Obviously, sometimes when you don't play consecutively and you don't get your best form, but I hopefully will get that now over the next few weeks.
To get into a game where now, do you do things? Is it just getting on the ball more and demanding it more and putting yourself in a position to it that you wouldn't have done when you were younger?
I suppose the game is just so different. You know what I mean? Like it's like it's 10 years ago now. And even I look back at some of the big games that, like I said, over lockdown, a lot of them were on TV, like the Heineken Cup final in 2009, 2011 that were replayed. Like the defenses are just so different. Like it's not that they're crazy unorganized, but they're, like I said, they're not as hard up, they're not as organized, they're not as well thought out, and they're not there to put you under as much stress as they do now. It was a different game, and it keeps evolving, and the games that we see now with a lot of kicking, they're very different to the games of even 3-4 years ago. So the game is always changing, so it's very hard to judge. That's why it's so hard to judge past players with current players. Like we're playing different games. I think I know some people say that it's not different, but I'm of the opinion that it is. And when the games that I watch past, I feel they are different. And I feel that playing the modern game now is very challenging. But there's other areas that you can exploit as well.
Billy Holland was talking during the week about how difficult it is for some of the players who are still uncertain about what they're going to be doing next season. He was talking about the Munster situation. The same situation applies generally to rugby all over the world at the moment around uncertainties with contracts, etc. Is that something that the players are talking about? Do you have to park that conversation, or do you have to have the conversation and get it out there and just say, yeah, we are all worried about what's coming next?
Yeah, I think that's where you can rely on each other, isn't it? It's being able to sit down and have a cup of tea with someone in camp and just talk to them about your situation and listen to theirs and try and, you know, get stuff off your chest. But look, no one's to blame here. You know what I mean? There's a pandemic going on in the world, and you know the contracts, I suppose, are a very small thing when you compare it to some of the stuff that's going on in the world. So look, it's not ideal. Most people would have contracts sorted by now, but just the nature of the uncertainty, like I said, it hasn't been possible, and that's what's happened. And like I said, no one's to blame, but hopefully all the guys will get sorted in sooner rather than later.
It sounds like you're fit, that you're fit and ready to go. Is the little niggle cleaned up?
Yeah, I trained mainly with physios over the last couple of days, just making sure that everything's all good. Like I said to the media earlier in the week at the Six Nations launch, it was more of a scare, like it was normally. It was probably, I nearly had an injury, kind of a little strain as such. Just felt it on acceleration, and I knew myself to, you know, avoid a 6 to 8 week injury. You just gotta, you know, bite the bullet and come off as much as I didn't want to. So yeah, hopefully now train fully Sunday and on into next week, and you know, hopefully get the campaign off to a good start. And, you know, I think this group are looking forward to getting back out there. We had I suppose, a good November from our point of view in terms of like the clarity that we got in our game. We've added Paul O'Connell into the coaching team, who's already had a good impact on the group over the last couple of days. And we figured out what we're about, and hopefully now we can put some performances and results out there so that, you know, people can see that.
Yeah, well, look, as I said earlier, we ask a lot of our sports people to go about their day jobs as if nothing else is going on, and to live in this bubble, metaphorically and literally in this case. But in this instance, it's safe to say the whole country is behind you. Johnny, thanks very much for your time tonight, and best of luck over the next 6 or 8 weeks.
Thanks, Jared.
It's Johnny Sexton there, the Ireland rugby captain.
Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.